Okay, so we can go ahead and get started. Let's talk about why we're here, and we'll introduce ourselves, and then we'll move forward. Let me hold on 1 second. Okay, I'm ready. All right, so I am Dr. Yolanda Peay, founder of Peay and Associates Consulting Group LLC and Peay and Associates Knowledge Foundation Incorporated. I am here with Ms. Alisha today, and this is our follow-up meeting to parent advocacy and why it matters. So, Alisha, go ahead and introduce yourself so we can go ahead and move forward.
Hi, Alisha Teruel-Conethan. I am a parent first, of course. I am a realtor, real estate professional as well. I'm a realtor, sell houses. As stated before, I'm passionate about the elevation and progression of people, both personally and in regards to business. And I'm a part of several organizations, a part of committees, voluntary committees with the Buffalo Niagara Association of Realtors, one of them being DE&I and the other best practices, as well as a founding member of NAREB, National Association of Real Estate Brokers, which is a 75-plus-year-old Black professional trade association that focuses on democracy and housing.
Great. Okay, and we talked earlier about how we met. Alisha is actually my realtor. She helped me find my very first house. So if you're in the market right now, definitely give her a call. She will help you navigate your way through the process and, make it that much easier for you to find a house that you want. All right, so we are here today to highlight the importance of parent advocacy, to share our experiences with parent advocacy, and then hopefully support those parents who may be experiencing challenges right now with trying to get the support that they need for their child. And I'll just briefly talk about what parent advocacy is. It's just, your right as a parent to voice what you need for your child to be successful in school. Doesn't matter if it's academic, doesn't matter if it's social emotional, behavior, whatever it is, you have the right as a parent to advocate for those needs of your child so that they can be successful. So that's why we're here. So what we want to do today, we didn't want to keep you guys waiting. We originally said that we would meet a week after the meeting that we had with the school district. So we're in the process right now. So what we want to do today is just highlight where we are. We'll talk a little bit about next steps, and then Alisha and I would like to share a project of ours that we would like to move forward with in our community. So Alisha, you want to just walk them through, give us a preview of what happened the first time, and then we could talk a little bit about where we are right now and those steps, and then we'll go into how to move forward.
Okay. Well, as per our last meeting on the 2nd, didn't expect for a situation to actually come up, though we were talking about connecting and, in regards to exclusionary discipline. My son was suspended, or the principal decided to suspend my son. We were granted the informal conference that you as a parent are entitled to based off of your rights as a parent. New York State law, education law, you are entitled to have an informal conference prior to the principal suspending your child, where you're able to question the any witnesses speaking against your child. That could obviously results in disciplinary action. So I had to actually state that to the principal in order to even be granted that. We were immediately given a SWIFT meeting that following Monday after the first. The SWIFT meeting was scheduled for the 4th, first thing in the morning. And we had a brief meeting with the teacher. Should I say, so she stormed out. I didn't really get a chance to actually ask her questions. So my rights weren't even actually exercised then. When we requested that she return, the principal denied us that opportunity, or not even opportunity, denied us those rights, stated we had time to ask questions. That's what he put in the letter after. And that it was escalated to a superintendent's hearing, but he actually had already done that prior to us even having an informal conference. He sent it to the superintendent for it to be escalated prior to us having the informal conference for that 5-day suspension with him. Is that?
Yeah, so I just wanted to piggyback on some of the things that you said, because I don't remember if we talked about this in our first live or not, but how you said that you are entitled to that meeting. So it's usually in the paperwork that you receive, but most of the time I feel like when parents receive that paperwork, they're already upset that the incident is happening, so they're not thoroughly reading through everything, right? And I think the other part of it is that some of our parents probably feel like it's already set in stone, so they missed that step. And now this is a really important step because like what we did, and it was very different for me. And I don't know if I shared this with you, Alicia, being on the other side, like being there to help advocate for you. It was different, but it wasn't because I had the opportunity to compare to the meetings that I had been in, prior to being with you as a principal at Enterprise Charter School. So, and I will definitely say it looks different across the board, but it's important for our parents to know that that's a very crucial step. And I do think, and I don't know if you agree with me or not, our listeners could let us know you got any questions, concerns, or anything like that. Put it in our comments below, and we'll definitely get back to you. But I do feel like, in addition to our parents feeling like it's set in stone, and we're already being upset, we sometimes don't give our kids the opportunity to just tell their side. And this is really big because I was just reading an article about, in Buffalo, how, some of the students felt like they didn't have the opportunity to speak on it. And that step is important because you need to see each side, to visualize a complete picture. And you should not be able to come up with anything moving forward as far as the consequence or days being suspended out of school until you're able to get that complete picture. So parents, please don't skip this step. Don't do it. Alisha and I learned a lot during that meeting, and we're going to come back. We're going to get more into detail about that, but I just want to highlight the importance of that step and not skipping it and coming in. And then we'll talk a little bit about what we can do as far as next steps. And what do you feel like, Alisha, right now that went well? What are some things that you can give our parents so that they can prepare for it? And what are some things that we feel like that we could probably improve upon the next time around? What's your thoughts?
Well, in terms of what I think went well, I think the fact that we, meaning I don't say my side, their side per se with the school,
Yeah.
Even though that technically was still what seemed to be what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
We did get out, not sure if it was actually listened to or heard because it seemed like most of it was repelled, but what we feel the school atmosphere is, what we know the school atmosphere is. I'm not going to say feel, I'm going to say what we know, because it's not just me who as a parent and or my son as a child who has experienced the things we discussed in that meeting. I feel it went, in terms of us just even knowing the school code of conduct and being able to bring that to them and use that in terms of, I don't want to say our argument, but technically our points in regards to how fairness, which is something that's mentioned in the school code of conduct, is to be held up as a standard on both sides. And I mean, I guess the fact that we were able to have that meeting, because initially, as you know, he was just trying to implement 5 days without even sending out the information in writing. And it would have, which like most parents, I think we said before, would have thought, oh, he's saying it's 5 days, that's it, that's all, that's just how it goes. So I hope I answered your questions.
You did. And I think the other thing is, when we're talking about in regards to suspension, like I feel like as an educator and as an administrator that should be the last and final step. So that means that you've tried everything up until that point to get this child on track. You've supported this child, you've put people in place to help support this child, and you've done everything within your grasp possible, right? So that way, if it does come to that point, all parties know that everything has been done. I did not feel like that was the case at this meeting. And I do feel like one of the things that we really need to focus on is holding these schools accountable. And that's where parent advocacy comes in place, because as an administrator, one of the things that I would do, you establish mentors, you have check-in and check-outs, you create platforms in the school so that not just teachers, but kids can also voice their opinions about what they like and what they don't like, and ways to get them involved and make sure that they're engaged. And overall, just have a positive school culture. Like that's detrimental. And
without the fear of, I'm sorry, I was going to say, without the fear of feeling like it's going to be retaliatory by the school district, staff, and administration, that their child's going to be targeted. These are all things that we brought up, as you know, within that meeting. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but that's important.
No, you're right. You're right. Kids should have safe spaces, and that's the point. They have parent advocacy, they have student advocacy. All of those things falls under the umbrella of advocacy. But first and foremost, holding these schools accountable is making sure that those things have been in place, making sure that parents feel comfortable coming into school. We talked about that a little bit. Because most of the time, let's just be honest here, parents are contacted when things aren't going right.
Correct.
I want to know what's going right with my kid. I want to know when they're on track. I want to know the positive things that's happening in the school that involves my child. Don't just call me when things are going wrong. And that's how those parent relationships are, a little bit scarred. And I thought it was interesting that I brought that up, and the principal completely denied it. Like, our parents don't feel like that. So the holding them accountable piece is like, well, how do you know? Have you done any surveys lately, right? Have you done any school climate surveys? Have you had meetings with parents for them to be able to voice their opinions and concerns and different things like that? Outside of the realm of only having it when, children are in trouble. Are those steps being taken? So our point is to make sure we highlight those things that schools can put in place to be proactive and hold them accountable as well. And I think the other part of it is too is that we don't want it to look one-sided. Like, every party plays a role in this. You can't completely put it on the side of the school, and you can't completely put it on the side of the parents either. All parties have to remain active, and all parties have to have a common goal, a shared common goal in mind as far as what it is that they want to accomplish that's particular to their school, because every school is basically different. So that's very important. I honestly, I'm really looking forward to our next discussion. We talk about what happened, everything like that, and the positive aspects of it, and what we want to do moving forward. So, and I don't know if we talked a little bit about, how we even got into this position, but you did highlight from the beginning that, your son had a situation that happened prior, right? Eighth grade. And then when we get to this meeting about what happened at this incident, what surprised me the most is that when we finally requested the meeting, we were there. You can talk to us a little bit about now is this other information. You're stating these things happen that you didn't talk about before. How do you come to the conclusion of days that's going to be given out without having all the information together in the first place?
And that brings me to the point of you talking about the children also having a voice.
Yeah.
Because in the letter that was sent to the superintendent, my son's voice was not mentioned at all. It was completely new. Nothing that he stated was mentioned. He didn't even, and for parents, just as a guide as well, your child has a right to speak and ask questions against the person who's speaking against them as well, and give their version. So not only do you as a parent have that right to question those speaking against your child, the child has a right to give their version, like Yolanda said earlier, in regards to the series of events that occurred, and speak up for themselves. What we experienced and what was written down was all based off of what they said they thought occurred, based off of what they were told from the teacher. They did not put in at all what my son had mentioned in regards to the series of events, why and how the verbal altercation was initiated and provoked. And I'm being on the side of the teacher, the personnel, who is still, though they feel there's a hierarchy there, and on a level there is, but then when you comes to mutual respect, human being to human being, that hierarchy, as far as I'm concerned, and I think most people will agree, there's no barrier, there's no line there. Because we want to go into the Me Too, we're going to swing that in, right? People were complaining about the fact that they felt abused, or they were abused, taken advantage of, and because this person had a position of power.
And so he said that, Alisha. He said that multiple times when we were there. He said, "You are not on my level. This is my school. Basically, I make the rules." So we already knew. When that came out, I already knew. I mean, you talked about, when you listened to everything and you heard me laughing, like, yeah. Because I already got the point of where he was going with that. So, yeah.
Right. Yeah. Even the comment of human being to human being, and then he says, no, teacher. And I said, who is a human? No, teacher. Human. A teacher is a human. A teacher does not negate them from being a human. If we both get cut with a razor blade, we're both going to bleed. There's no difference there. And then again, like I said, school code of conduct, knowing and mentioning mutual respect, and that all parties under this school code of conduct, like all personnel, unless otherwise stated, are to abide by these self-discipline and fairness and honesty and integrity. That's another issue in itself that we can probably talk about. I don't know if we'll talk about it today, but also talk about that later as well. But my son consistently talking about the fact that he's being accused of something that he did not do. And that was being disregarded
definitely. And I had to remind him, and it was really hard for me to do it. But the fact that he was talking about, the school as a whole, and I'm like, yeah, we are. We are concerned about the school as a whole, but at the same time, regardless of why we're here right now today, JJ is also a kid. He's also human. He's also a matter of importance. You can't completely dismiss that because of the present scenario right now. And I think that that completely goes over their heads. Like, I think he completely missed the whole point of that because all of a sudden now you're treating this child as if he's not a child, as if, he's something other than what he is. And the other comment, before I go off on a tangent, that the teacher made when she was like, he's 6 foot tall.
Mm-hmm.
Ma'am, no, he isn't.
Yes.
So
And
now
you're
we
taller than
already
him.
know how you feel. At what point, right? What was it? At what point do I become like the problem? At what point, do our kids become
Become
this?
a threat.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
become a threat. Thank you.
Become
At
a
what point
threat.
does this happen? He's
Mm-hmm.
in 10th grade, and this is how you feel. So imagine her perspective walking down the street is a grown Black man walking down the street who actually
Right.
is over 6 feet tall.
Right.
What's your perspective then? But these
Right.
are the things like the microaggressions, the racism, and everything that goes into this. And I just want you to touch on really briefly, then I'll stop with this part. But when you talk to him about, and I think I touched on it, you touched on it, and so did your sister. And we talked about the high rate that minority students or students of color are suspended, and the fact that they're given more discipline compared to their white counterparts. And I did not feel like as if he received that. He acted as if what we said was like something that we just created in our minds, and there's actually research to support this. And to be a part of this meeting and actually see his reaction to that is like another reason why I feel discussions like this are so important to get the word
Yes.
out, because it deserves more attention. It definitely does.
Mm-hmm.
I was so appalled by the way that he dismissed it.
Mm-hmm.
So appalled
No.
by that.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, sad to say, unfortunately, that is the school culture. That's what we've been dealing with since his situation in 8th grade. Even when you stay, the data shows this.
Mm-hmm.
Data shows that. Data shows that Blacks and Black and children of color, more so Black boys and girls, are suspended at much higher rates. Given
You also said more mature too. They're treated as if they're more mature.
Yes.
The fact that she said he was 6 foot, definitely corroborated with that notion.
Yes, which is right. And then what my sister said about what you said, treating them as their older, adultification. I couldn't get the word out at the time with the meeting too, and because I know I was upset a bit. But yes, adultification, where they are again treated as though they are older than what they are. They are again more harshly disciplined. This is something that I've been saying to this school district since 8th grade. And even the fact that my sister mentioned how her daughters, my nieces, went there, and they're almost 30. And this is stuff I've also been saying to the school district. I don't know if they think we're just saying stuff to say stuff, but that though they were A students and they didn't have any situations where that caused them, or where the school felt they had to give them disciplinary action, they were not content with the school atmosphere, especially in terms of cultural diversity. And he disregarded that as well.
Oh, he did. He said, what did he say? He said, and we'll definitely, guys, don't get it twisted. We will come back and show you the evidence. We'll play the recordings and everything like that. But he said, I have very good relationships with my African American students, with my Muslim students. Like, we talk all the time, and basically like we're good. But when we asked him how did he know, he didn't have anything to back that up.
Right.
Nothing at all. He hadn't done a school culture survey in over, I don't know if it was like 5 or 10 years.
2015. Yeah, I think he said 2015. So we're talking almost 10 years.
Oh, right, exactly. It hadn't been done. So you're in essence speaking on behalf of your students of color. You're speaking for them again, not giving them the opportunity to voice how they feel, and you talk about their experiences so that you can actually make change. And that's another big thing for me though. Like, I feel like it's easy for our school districts to dismiss it because they're not in a position to want to make change. How do you get them to want to make change? You hold them accountable, right? You make them accountable. You ask for those things that can be in place so that they can be proactive and so that you can prevent, scenarios like this with your son from happening. But the problem with that, and you can let me know, Alisha, how you feel about it, is that they really don't want to do the work. It's been like this for so long. why do we need to change right now? Because you said
Yes.
so? You know what I
Yes.
mean?
And he even implied that in the meeting, because you feel away, or you're saying you feel
Yeah.
away, that's what then that makes it true. And I'm saying I'm experiencing it. It's not about just feeling away, it's actually experiencing a situation and having other parents and students who have voiced these same concerns, just because they may not have come to you at any point in time, because they may not have been at this table, as he stated,
Mhm.
for whatever reason, in terms of disciplinary action, we still have conversations. And as I stated to him, and I told him, we have letters from parents and students that are not in line with what you're stating is the culture and the great culture and multicultural atmosphere that you're claiming is in this school district. So again, he dismissed all of that, and and um
He
and
also talked about everything they did for Black History Month. Like, we're Black 365 days a year. You know what I mean? That 1 month is thrown in there. It's just thrown in there. But this is something like you need to be conscious of the entire school year, not just 1 month out of the year. Let's just, be clear about that as we're moving into March from Black History Month. But he brought that up. He definitely
right.
did.
And I mean, I'm gonna be on all of the years that I've lived here. They did have on their digital screen celebrating Black History Month. I never saw it prior to this year. I'm gonna be honest, and I don't know if it's because I had sent something to the town and mentioned the situation with racial issues and cultural diversity within the school district, and so then that was something that was
Mm-hmm.
implemented.
Mm-hmm.
But I drive up down Main Street all the time, and like I said, lived out here for years, never saw it. But in any case, they could probably say, well, we can prove you wrong, and say it's fine, whatever. I
Yeah.
live here. I feel like I'm pretty sure I'd remember if that was there. But in any case, it still circles back to saying that it's one person saying something, but now we also have other parents who are stating something, are saying this and stating something, and I have it in writing as I stated to him. And you're now saying that, oh, what they're saying is discounted too. All the family members that we mentioned, we didn't give him specific names, but all these family members are just, so we're just a family of that just doesn't like school. Like you understand what I'm saying? That all of
We
these
don't have
different,
anything else to do with our time but come up with these allegations because we don't have enough on our plate. Doesn't
right,
happen.
family members and friends
Doesn't
who went
happen.
to the school and experienced situations and abuse, in essence. I'm gonna be honest, like what's going on, it's abusive. It's verbal abuse going on, there's racial bullying and abuse going on, and it's not enough to just try to throw a book in an elementary school and say, oh, you're welcome now. No, there's things that need to be put in place. And I'm just going to say this while I'm on it. As I told him, there was an incident where we did speak to a teacher and requested to speak to a teacher. And I think I said this in the last live regarding cultural diversity. There was a statement that she made. And so this was prior to any disciplinary action that was being taken against my son, where I reached out about cultural diversity. So just, I'm saying that to say it's not a situation where we were coming and now we're raising our voices and doing things because now he's in a position where he's being disciplined, where they want to implement disciplinary action. I was going to them prior. I was going in an attempt to be proactive. So I want to make sure that's put out there, because a
And
lot of
we
what we
asked them,
say.
Alisha, you remember we asked, we said, okay, so, are your teachers trained in diversity, equity, and inclusion? And I don't think we received oh yeah, they are all the time. But he couldn't give us anything that was specific. Like, and if they were, they're definitely not practicing any of those things that they learned in that training in the school. So what is the point?
Exactly.
But that is another way, that we can hold schools accountable too, because what's happening right now, I feel like, is that these districts have been isolated. So for the most part throughout history, there haven't been a lot of students of color who have attended schools like Amherst District. Um, so now that they're getting more students of color, they're experiencing more behavior challenges, and I think partly because they're culturally incompetent.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of these things are like blown out of proportion or not addressed appropriately, or are taken differently from their experiences because they're just not accustomed to the way that our kids talk or behave or different things like that, and it's escalated, right?
Which is what my son's dad
Disproportionately
said.
escalated. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
To
which
the
is what
point
my
where
son said.
where we are right now with JJ. It could have been, resolved. It didn't have to go this far. But
No.
because they don't have this experience with working with students of color, now they have this influx of the population of students of color, we are where we are right now. And they feel like they can continue to operate the way that they have been when students of color were not there. And this is not the case. You
Right.
cannot do that if we want to make sure that every student has a equitable, quality education and can be successful.
Correct. Yep. And it can't be a fall in line. And what I viewed from WGRZ, there's nothing against WGRZ. I'm just using them as an example. I don't have any qualms with them per se. I don't have any qualms. However, what they feel they see that's given out on social media, or I'll just say the media in general, in terms of any students of color being violent, which is what they're trying to say my son did. Immediately a Black kid becomes a violent kid, or a Black girl, a Black kid, again, girl or boy, is they're violent, they're prone to violence, and just exaggerating and stories and making up lies. It's detrimental. It's detrimental for the school district, but it's also detrimental for, obviously, for children. It's not okay. It's not providing a place where they can thrive and excel. And that is a problem, because at the end of the day, that's what education is supposed to be for. Like, when they shouldn't be going to school and being stressed out about what is going to happen that day, walking on eggshells or feeling uncomfortable. And that is something that my son continuously said about his feelings. Y'all don't care about my feelings. Y'all don't care about how I feel. Y'all don't care about what I say. He asked him to stop lying on his name. And I know how my son is. His grandmother knows how he is. And many people know that my son does not just react to things, he doesn't just blow up just to blow up. But at the end of the day, still in all, I'm still saying is that not really taking into consideration what is being said to you.
And that's how you avoid a one-sided narrative, because that's basically what's happening, right now. It's a one-sided narrative, and that's the same thing that's going to be escalated, to the superintendents here. And I do think there was a point in time where we asked, is this the information that's going to the superintendent? Oh, yes, it is. But I'll have a conversation with the superintendent after this meeting, to follow up, regardless. It's still coming from a one-sided perspective. He's the source of the information, and his experience is actually going to play a role in how he expresses, the event and how we got to this point. So that's important too to really talk about. I do think that one of the things that went well is the fact that we did look into all of the facts before we got there. We had a lot of questions to ask. We were very, goal oriented. One of the things I definitely want to put out there is that we want to make sure that when we accomplish a goal, like when we are advocating, for our kids, that we stay focused on what that goal is, and then also make sure that, and I know I've said this 1,000 times and I'll keep saying it, we hold them accountable. We hold ourselves accountable as parents, right? We do what we need to do, because first and foremost, we lay the foundation. It starts with us. But then we also put our kids in the hands of these teachers and administrators for 8 or, more, whatever hours a day. And that matters. So they have to be accountable as well. So I do feel like those things are, the main things that you need to focus on going into. And that was just a meeting before. Like, we didn't even talk about the superintendent's hearing right now. And I know I wanted to talk about a little bit of my experience with it, but you want to talk to our listeners a little bit about what you're expecting to happen and what have your experiences been so far with attending the superintendent's hearing, when advocating for your child?
Okay, well, like you said, that was a brief before going to the superintendent's hearing. Nothing that my son stated happened was even mentioned in the letter. And to circle back to the inconsistencies with just the suspension letters that were sent, and us having the informal meeting and having questions or wanting to pose questions, but then, like you said, stating, "Oh, I'm going to go back and have a conversation with the superintendent," and then we come back we get the letter for the superintendent's hearing, and then more stuff is added that wasn't mentioned initially. Now, stuff that he's saying he experienced himself, that on Friday, then on that letter that was sent out Friday, when I said I want the written suspension letter, that should have been in there. So then stuff was added, taken away. Now more stuff's added. And that alone is
My
just
opinion.
right. Is preparation. And but again, I'm not shocked. Okay.
Yeah.
But it's just preparation. It just allows me to just, okay, this is what they're doing. This is what they're going to try to make it seem like what they're doing is legitimate.
Mhm.
So in terms of the superintendent's hearing, like I said, it's almost coming like full circle. Having been there before, I understand the importance of having counsel. So that's what I'm working on now. And also wanting to make sure, the same as we did for that informal meeting, though, like I said, we didn't even get to all of our questions because this teacher stormed up and left the room and I wasn't made to come back. Making sure that I have what I need to have for me, since I was actually a witness to the incident when it happened, just having things in line, making sure I'm going over what my son told me, what the witnesses who he spoke to, what they said, and what we have from them. And so just again, just making sure, without giving too much, that we're prepared for what may come. Like I said, unfortunately, the hearing officer herself was biased. I'm hoping she isn't biased, but like I said, she put stuff in about me.
They pulled their hearing officers from both seats, right?
Yes.
You definitely sent the paperwork. Okay.
Yeah.
So you've had this one before.
Right. And
Okay.
she put stuff about me in the facts and findings, about me in the hearing last time in the facts and findings, which doesn't have really anything to do with what was stated and or presented. I was a frustrated parent that shouldn't even really been there. I feel even for that. So
saying you're a frustrated parent without talking about why you're frustrated, again, is one-sided. Very one-sided, but okay.
But that seems to be the going thing there. So just what I expect is for them to move honestly how they've already been moving. Not really being not really looking to really hear what you're saying, just looking to try to prove themselves right or make themselves as to be right in their decision. As in the meeting, you guys even asked multiple times why was stuff put in there and you hadn't even fully investigated it, and we didn't have time. So then why did you agree to even? I thought about this today. Why did you even agree to have a meeting first thing in the morning on Monday if you knew you didn't even have enough time to gather all the information and justify what you put in the letter?
Yeah. And everything that he put in the letter came, some of the things, not everything, but some of the things he put in the letter came after the fact. And one of the reasons I asked him, and we talked about this a little bit, is like, how did you come up with 5 days if you didn't have everything in order? Because the very first thing I'm doing as an administrator is making sure that I'm looking into all the evidence. I'm checking cameras. I'm talking to other students. I'm, whatever witnesses were there. I want to hear that student's account of what was there. I'm talking to the teachers and everything else. I need to get all sides before I even come up with a number. But he already had a number because he said that prior to the meeting that we had on Monday without having all of his facts, all of his ducks in a row before it happened. So, and one of the comments he made was, oh, this is my school. This is my school, right. But education, as an educational leader, you are in a position of servitude. You're here to serve these students. That's why you're here. And I felt like that completely went over his head too. And this is why we are in the positions that we are right now as parents of color, having to deal with these types of scenarios. It's mind blowing to me. It's mind blowing. Yeah.
I'm glad you were there to experience. I'm saying it.
Yeah, I'm happy you invited me there. I'm happy you invited me there because it was good for me to see from a different perspective from the outside looking in. And a lot of things he did, I definitely wouldn't have done as if I was in his shoes and as an administrator, because at the end of the day, every child deserves to be valued. And yes, you need to protect every student, but you still need to make sure that you treat every individual student as if they matter, regardless to their behavior. That's a child. You know what I mean? And I don't feel like that was the case with this particular scenario. And I'm hoping that these conversations that we're having right now, we can start to, shift the narrative on it and get more parents involved in all of that. So I'm also looking forward to hopefully being a part of this hearing if I'm invited and to see, what this actually plays out. But we talked about this a little bit before we actually went live, and I said that I feel like, the experiences that parents have also differ. So we had a independent hearing officer. Her name was Bernadette Glackney, and she was the one that was assigned, or she was hired through Enterprise Charter School to be that third party. So some of the things that she did that stood out to me most was is that when we asked her to be a part of it, so anytime it was more than 5 days of a suspension time, right? We would bring her on to either to justify it or to say, this isn't right. So one of the things she did was she made sure that she didn't know anything about the incident prior to coming. She only got the information when she came and literally sat down in her office and put her briefcase down. That's when she got the information. The other part about it was we always made sure that not just the parent but the child was present. And the other part is that she always made sure that she gave the child a voice. How are you feeling? What actually happened? So she made sure that she had, right, every perspective in line before she agreed with what we were trying to do or disagree with what we wanted to do. And there was times that she actually didn't agree and we would meet. You know what I mean? But that is what should actually happen because that's what it looks like when your voice is actually heard. Not just making it so it's a formality, right? We know like legally they have to do this. It's a formality, but at the same time, there's a reason why this step is here and why it's so important.
Right. And I think that's important that you said that because one of the statements that was made by the hearing officer back when in 8th grade was, we're here to discuss Javon's action. That was the statement. I said, well, we can't discuss his actions. Huh?
I said, how telling is that?
Right. And I said, well, we can't discuss his actions and ignore what happened prior for a reaction to occur. We can't just say this person reacted this way and they have to be held accountable for their actions and not address or acknowledge what happened prior or to the person reacting to a situation. So you're saying you're going to ignore everything else that caused this person to feel uncomfortable, to feel bullied, to feel harassed, to feel emotionally stressed. We're going to ignore all that and we're just going to go into what we have here in terms of charges. So we're not looking at the whole picture. And what I said, the example I used back then was, that's like somebody who's getting touched under the table, right? Violated under the table. Then they bang their hands on the table and why are you banging your hands on the table? What's going on? What are you doing? Why are you doing that? And you're only addressing that. Meanwhile, they may have been telling you they were being violated. Or again, just
chose to ignore it, right? Either we talked about this, not to cut you off, but we talked about this. Either way, it's a conscious choice. If you want to make sure that you understand or you don't understand how we got to this point, it's a conscious choice that's made in school districts every day. It's a choice either way. Let's just be clear about that. You wanted to and you decided to look into it, or you decided not to.
Right. And again,
accountable.
Yep. And I mean, that's the same thing we've been circling back to. You can't keep talking about children are supposed to be this way. They're supposed to listen. And not acknowledge and or take accountability for and make your staff accountable and be accountable to your staff and make them accountable for their actions that are provoking situations that could very well be avoided.
Yep. So you're holding the children, your students, more accountable than what you're holding your staff.
Right. And then, like I said, in terms of, she jumped up and said it's unprofessional, but at the end of the day, you started out acting unprofessionally.
Oh, she did. She came in like, it's this whole sense of superiority, as if, yes, the audacity of you to even ask me to be present in this meeting, as if you're questioning anything that I said. You're questioning my account, like, how dare you even come to me? Like, this is beneath me right now. And that's the sense, and that's how I felt. And I can only imagine, how your son felt in that classroom. Because if this is what the vibe that you're giving off right now, in the presence of all of these adults, your boss included, the dean of students included, his mom, his grandmother, his aunt, his father on the phone, like, I can only imagine what it felt like for him during that day or that incident or multiple days being in the classroom with her, if that's how she felt with us.
Right. And then after she left and did the recording, I'm just putting this out there because this one of the students ended up telling him that then she went to another teacher and was crying on her shoulder. So we're gonna scream it professional, right?
Play victim. We're gonna
play the victim. Right. Before you left, you made sure to turn around and say, I'm pressing charges.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
You go
But
and
you're
cry.
the victim right now because we questioned you.
Right. And didn't even get a chance to do that really the
Wow.
way I wanted. But
Yeah.
yes, yeah, still be saying not making it one-sided. We were just saying with the facts. Like, so again, like we said, you will be able to see that what we're stating are not things that are just being
Right.
made up. And so you will be able to see that. Again, anyone who has questions or just, in general about what the process is, because sometimes, again, we just don't know. Like, I didn't know.
Yeah.
I didn't know until my son was in it. And I was like, this can't be okay. This can't be okay for children to be getting suspended like this, for an excessive amount of time. That's the time that not to say that disciplinary action doesn't need to take place, but that's the time that you still, okay, now we're going to have conversations and how can we do better and how can we move forward? Not just, we're just going to keep kicking them out and then we're just going to keep trying to action any chance we can get, because we have to, this is now how I'm saying, but what it is, prove that the decisions we made, they're the problem. It's them, not what can we do or what's happening within our atmosphere, within our culture that's causing frustration and buildup. And then that kind of circles back to what we were saying about, parents also just feeling like the fall in line mode. If we're going to keep it 100, we're going to keep it above listen to master, because that is where it goes, right? Just don't say anything. Don't upset master because you don't want to get in trouble, right? If we're going to go back, we're going to be serious now because we're going to have real conversations, and this is what needs to happen. You had those on the field, and you run away, you're going to get your foot cut off. You want to get your foot cut off? Okay, well then you just go, don't say nothing, don't do nothing. We are sometimes still in a mentality where we are enslaved mentally, and we allow ourselves to be enslaved mentally because we feel like it's better than over there. At least I'm not over there doing certain things. But now you're allowing your kid to be mentally, emotionally abused by a system that does not care about your child. Systemic racism is in all different forms. It's in many systems within the US. And until we really start to acknowledge those types of things, we're going to be in a position where we are going to be treated not the same.
Yeah.
It's going to be equitable.
Right. So one of the reasons why we're together right now, and one of the biggest reasons why we're having these conversations is because we don't want to continue to be reactive, right? So just as we're saying that the schools need to be proactive, we need to be proactive as parents. And so our whole point here, our goal here is to disrupt the system, right? We want to disrupt the system. We want to dismantle the system. We want a system where our kids can be treated, right, with respect and have all the supports that they need to be successful. So that is our goal, which leads us into what we're hoping to do in the future, right? We talked a little bit about this before our live, but originally we stated that we wanted to form a parent advocacy group, right? So what we want to let our listeners know is that we no longer want to be reactive as parents. We want to be proactive. So Alisha and I are going to put together a series of seminars, panel discussions, and we would very much love for you to come out and support us in this endeavor and be a part of our group. So what did I say is going to be our Parent Advocacy Community Initiative project? And we'll have that information. It'll be forthcoming. But we are hoping that you guys can definitely attend, because this is where we're going to lay out, right, what suspension looks like, how to be proactive and not reactive, but to make sure that you're in a position to actually advocate for your child, not just when an incident happens, but in a sense where you can do it to prevent these types of incidents from happening. So we want to get that word out. We'll definitely share that information moving forward. But I think our final thought is for you to really think about, if you've been in this position, what could you have done differently, how to prepare, and to really think about Alisha's story, because we always think that it can't happen to me. This is what we think. It can't happen to me. And then when it does, now we're in a position to be reactive, which is what we're trying to prevent. So these conversations are all focused around the goal of dismantling the system and putting the idea out there and just bringing more awareness to what parent advocacy is and why it matters. So, Alisha, do you have any final thoughts for our listeners before we wrap things up today?
Well, just knowing that you have supports, like Yolanda said, she's here, I'm here. We're working together to make these changes. And I mean, it's true. Things don't happen, like she said, sometimes change doesn't happen, and
Yeah.
movements don't start per se until like somebody is affected and is like, this is enough, this is not okay. Like I've seen and witnessed enough, and now I'm going through a certain situation, and yes, I'm fighting for my child, I'm advocating for my child, but my thing is I don't want any other family or person to have to go through this, regardless of their race. But us and our and with Black and brown children, it is an issue. So this is something that needs to, I'm sorry.
A very big issue.
Yes, it needs to be addressed. And so it's, again, it's so that no other child has to go through this. No other family has to go through this. Um, I want to make sure I make that clear. This is beyond, it's bigger than just me. It's bigger than my son. But I feel like at this point, I know at this point in time, this is something that needs to be addressed, and that's why it is. And again, just us being proactive and understanding that you do have help here, because it's not highlighted, like Yolanda said, the way it should be. That's I guess again why we're here. There was something I did want to say, but I can't remember. I wish I could remember, but it was just in regards to like, oh, cultural diversity. I did want to say that. Remember when you asked, I wanted to go back to that, and he said yes, we do. He mentioned, I guess, like there's a class or something, or cultural responsive teaching, but like I said, it's not mandatory. They have it at the elementary school, and I just wanted to make sure I said that. And I know, and I was, like I said, I went in 2021, and that's when I found out that it wasn't mandatory, and I was like, okay, I know for a fact, given the student demographic, like this should be mandatory. Given the student population, this should not be something that's voluntary for any staff. And I'm talking from the top, the Panella, the superintendent down. This should be mandatory. This should be something that shouldn't be a 1-day class or a 3-hour class, as far as I'm concerned. This is something that should be every single year and multiple times throughout the year, to be honest, especially given the experience that I myself had, and I know from having conversations with other parents they themselves and their children have had. It is imperative that this is not something that's just done for if somebody feels like they want to do it, especially with how just the nation and the world is changing in general. Like it's not okay. We have to, and so that's kind of just what I wanted to say. We're here, and I'm looking forward to helping people and knowing that you have a right as a parent. Your children have rights. It's okay for you to advocate. It's okay for you to find out information. You are not blocked out. You are not just to succumb to whatever's being told to you. Sometimes, yes, it's important. And we're here to just help and give out information and help each other grow, so that we all have a better way of life, a better quality of life. It matters. And without repercussion, I'm sorry, I'm gonna make sure I say it, I'm sorry. And without recourse, knowing that you have the right to say something without recourse or retaliatory methods coming from the teachers, the school district, coming from the district, I'll just say that. And if that happens, after you do advocate, know that you still have, I want to say outlets, you still have recourse even for that. I want to go.
Yeah, and then we'll make sure that during our next slide that we'll talk about what those steps are, right? Because that's really important too, to show not only say, you have options, but these are what your options are.
And this is part of their job. I want to go back to what you said about the work, right? And then not wanting to do the work, them not wanting to do the work. Feeling like I've been coming to this place for however many years. And often they like to mention however many years they've been a teacher or a principal, so on and so forth. That doesn't mean that you have all the answers. None of us have all the answers, and things change. That's life, right? Life changes. We evolve. We're supposed to be progressing, right? We didn't have before TV. There was radio. Before radio, right? There was telegrams, right? Things progress. So that means things change. So that means you have to want to pivot if you really want to grow and still maintain a good quality of life, not only for yourself, but for others. You have to be able to pivot and want to move and understand how things are changing and embrace that, even when it's uncomfortable. but
Yeah.
not doing the work keeps
That's the big
kids
thing, though,
stagnant.
Alisha. Not to cut you off, but that's the big thing. People don't like being uncomfortable.
Right.
It's easier to be defensive than it is to really lean into the discomfort and figure out, okay, something needs to change here, and this is why I'm feeling this discomfort. What is that change? You know, what does that process look like, and that sort of thing. But I feel like that's the major reason why it doesn't happen, because it makes people so uncomfortable, and it's easier to deny the fact.
Yep. Yep. Which is what we
But it's time.
witnessed.
You're right. It's definitely time. Times have changed. Kids have changed. Processes have changed. And you got to move with the times to make sure that you're addressing scenarios such as this, right? And being proactive to make sure that our kids have what they need to be successful. Every
Yep.
kid should be valued regardless.
Indeed.
Yeah. Okay, well, we'll wrap things up right now. I just want to let everybody know, please, please, please join in this conversation. Go ahead and put your information, or, you know, any of your experiences or any concerns that you have or any comments that you have in the comments below. We will have this posted again. And then you can also reach out to me at info@peayandassociates.com. That's info@PEAY and associates.com. And then I'll make sure that I get back to you. So we want to thank you all for joining us today. Thank you for being a part of this conversation, and thank you for being a part of our initiative. And like I said before, we'll make sure that information regarding our Parent Advocacy Community Initiative is forthcoming. We're going to have a series of seminars, you know, workshops, panel discussions, those sorts of things to help you all in this fight to make sure that your child has what they need to be successful in school, and to make sure you have the resources, tools, and support to advocate for your child effectively. So thank you for coming out, guys. We'll talk soon.
Have a good one.